Desperate cheating wife begs for a second chance after her life falls apart and karma strikes back. Hey Reddit. For the past 10 years, I was a devoted husband. I thought I had built a perfect life with my wife, Sarah. She was the woman I fell head over heels in love with in college. Back then, she was kind, driven, and had this infectious energy that lit up every room she walked into. We built a life together, career successes, a beautiful home, and what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. But everything shattered when I uncovered the truth. It started innocently enough. Sarah had been spending more time on her phone, which wasn't unusual in today's world. But I noticed the way she would angle the screen away from me or laugh at something, then abruptly stop when I entered the room. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was texting her friends. Maybe it was work stress. I trusted her, so I told myself not to overthink it. Then came the late-night work meetings. Sarah had never worked late before, but suddenly, her schedule seemed packed with after-hours commitments. I started to feel uneasy when I overheard one of her calls. She was speaking in a hushed tone, her voice unusually soft. My gut told me something was wrong, but I pushed the doubts aside. I didn't want to believe my wife was capable of betrayal. The breaking point came when she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. She had forgotten to log out of her email, and a notification popped up. The subject line read, "Miss you already." My heart sank. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. What I found confirmed my worst fears. The email thread revealed an ongoing affair with someone named Mark. They exchanged romantic messages, explicit photos, and even discussed the times they had been together while I was at home, trusting her completely. It felt like my chest was being crushed. The woman I had loved for over a decade was living a double life. I couldn't believe it. I confronted Sarah that night. Her face turned pale when I showed her the emails. At first, she denied it, but when I laid out all the evidence, she broke down. She cried, apologized, and begged me to forgive her. She claimed it was a mistake, that she had been feeling neglected and had turned to someone else for comfort. Her excuses only made me angrier. I wasn't perfect, but I had never once disrespected our marriage. The next few weeks were a blur. I filed for divorce. Sarah begged me to reconsider, saying she would do anything to fix things, but I was done. The trust was gone, and I couldn't see a future with someone who had betrayed me so deeply. The divorce was finalized quickly, and Sarah moved out of the house. I thought that would be the end of it, but life had other plans. After the divorce, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, reconnected with old friends, and even started going to therapy. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again. But then, out of nowhere, Sarah came back into the picture. It started with random texts. She would message me about insignificant things, like asking if I remembered where we had stored an old photo album or what brand of coffee I used to buy. I ignored her at first, but her messages became more frequent. Then, one day, she showed up at my doorstep. She looked disheveled, like she hadn't slept in days. Her once bright eyes were dull, and her confident demeanor was replaced with desperation. Sarah told me her life had fallen apart. After our divorce, she had moved in with Mark, thinking they were destined to be together. But karma had other plans. She discovered that Mark had been cheating on her with multiple women. When she confronted him, he kicked her out of his apartment. With nowhere else to go, she ended up couch surfing with friends. She had also been let go from her job due to poor performance, which she claimed was because she was too emotionally distraught to focus. She stood on my porch, tears streaming down her face, begging me to give her another chance. She swore she had changed, that she realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life by betraying me. She told me she was willing to do anything to earn back my trust. I wish I could say I felt nothing, but seeing her like that stirred up a mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. Karma had done its job. But another part of me felt a pang of sadness. This was the woman I had once loved deeply, reduced to a shell of her former self. I told her I needed time to think and asked her to leave. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. A part of me wondered if she was genuinely remorseful or just desperate because her life had fallen apart. Another part of me questioned whether I could ever trust her again, even if she had changed. And then there was the anger. Why should I even consider taking back someone who had caused me so much pain? The days turned into weeks, and Sarah didn't give up. She sent me long letters apologizing for everything she had done. She called my friends and family, trying to convince them to talk to me on her behalf. She even started going to therapy, claiming she wanted to work on herself to become a better person. I remained distant, but her persistence began to wear on me. I found myself questioning whether I should at least hear her out. Maybe she truly had changed. Maybe there was a chance to rebuild something, even if it wasn't the same as before. But then I reminded myself of the pain she had caused, the nights I spent crying alone, wondering what I had done wrong. Did she deserve a second chance, or was I just fooling myself? As I grappled with these questions, something unexpected happened. I ran into Mark at a local coffee shop. He recognized me and had the audacity to approach me. He laughed and said he had heard about Sarah's attempt to win me back. He called her pathetic and told me she was only coming to me because she had no other options. His smug attitude reignited the anger I had buried. Hearing Mark's words solidified my resolve. I realized that I deserved better than someone who only wanted me when her life fell apart. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that this story wasn't over. Sarah's return had opened old wounds, and I needed to find closure, one way or another. I decided to meet with her, not to reconcile, but to lay everything out on the table. I wanted to know why she had done what she did and whether her remorse was genuine or just a ploy to escape her current circumstances. I also wanted to make it clear that I wouldn't be a backup plan for someone who had thrown me away so easily. When we finally sat down to talk, her confession shocked me. It wasn't just about Mark. There were other secrets, deeper betrayals, that she had been hiding all along. As she spoke, I felt my world unraveling all over again. This story is far from over, and I'm not sure where it will lead. But one thing is certain, I'm not the same person I was before. Whatever happens next, I'm determined to come out stronger on the other side. When I sat down with Sarah, I expected a tearful apology, maybe more excuses about why she had cheated, and perhaps a desperate plea to reconcile. What I didn't expect was the full extent of the truth. As we sat across from each other in a quiet corner of a coffee shop, her eyes swollen from crying, she took a deep breath and began to speak. She told me that her affair with Mark wasn't the only time she had been unfaithful. It started long before Mark entered the picture, during a time when I thought our marriage was at its strongest. Sarah confessed to having had multiple affairs over the years, some physical, others emotional. She claimed they were brief, meaningless flings that she justified to herself by blaming me for being too busy with work or too inattentive to her needs. Every word she said felt like another dagger to the heart. I had spent years trying to be the best husband I could be, working long hours to provide for us, and making sacrifices to ensure our future was secure. And yet, she had taken all of that for granted. As she detailed each betrayal, my mind reeled. I could barely comprehend how someone I had loved so deeply could betray me so thoroughly. She admitted that Mark was the only affair she had developed genuine feelings for, but even that had been a toxic disaster. She explained how their relationship had started with excitement and passion, only to spiral into arguments, jealousy, and ultimately, betrayal. Mark had used her, lied to her, and discarded her when she was no longer convenient. In her words, he was a mirror of her own behavior, and it was only after losing everything that she realized the weight of her mistakes. When she finished, Sarah broke down completely. She begged me to understand that she was a different person now. She claimed therapy had helped her recognize the patterns of her behavior and the damage she had caused. She insisted that she truly loved me and wanted to spend the rest of her life making amends. She asked for a chance to prove herself, to show that she could be the wife I deserved. I sat there in silence, my mind racing. Her words felt hollow, no matter how sincere she sounded. How could someone who had spent years deceiving me suddenly expect me to trust her again? The memories of our life together, the good times and the bad, played in my head like a cruel montage. I wanted to believe her, to think that people could change, but I couldn't ignore the overwhelming sense of betrayal that consumed me. I told Sarah that I needed time to process everything and left the coffee shop without making any promises. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her confession had opened old wounds and created new ones. I replayed every moment of our marriage in my mind, searching for signs I had missed, clues that should have alerted me to the truth, but no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been blindsided. Over the next few days, Sarah continued to reach out. She sent long messages apologizing and expressing her love for me. She offered to take a lie detector test, involve her therapist in our conversations, and even sign a postnuptial agreement if it meant I would consider giving her another chance. Her desperation was palpable, but it only made me more conflicted. I decided to meet with my therapist to sort through my emotions. As I explained the situation, my therapist asked me a question that stuck with me: what do you need to feel whole again? It wasn't about what Sarah wanted or what she was willing to do. It was about me, my healing, and my future. That question helped me realize that I had been so focused on Sarah's actions and her attempts at reconciliation that I hadn't taken the time to truly reflect on what I needed. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild my life with a renewed sense of purpose. I focused on my career, my hobbies, and my relationships with friends and family. I even started dating casually, though I was upfront with anyone I met about my recent divorce and the emotional baggage I was carrying. It wasn't easy, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Sarah, however, was persistent. She continued to attend therapy and would occasionally send me updates about her progress. She apologized for burdening me with her efforts to change but said she felt it was important for me to know that she was committed to becoming a better person. As much as I wanted to ignore her, I couldn't deny that a part of me was curious. Was she truly changing, or was this just another manipulation? One day, Sarah asked if we could meet one last time. She said she wanted to give me closure, whether or not I decided to let her back into my life. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at the park where we used to go for picnics in the early years of our marriage. It was a place filled with happy memories, but now it felt tainted by the weight of our history. Sarah brought a small notebook with her, which she said was a journal she had been keeping during her therapy sessions. She handed it to me and told me I could read it if I wanted to understand her journey. She explained that she had written down every regret, every realization, and every goal she had set for herself in the aftermath of our divorce. She said it wasn't meant to sway my decision but to show me that she was taking responsibility for her actions. As I flipped through the pages, I saw a mix of raw emotions, self-reflection, and genuine remorse. She wrote about the guilt she felt for betraying me, the emptiness she experienced after losing everything, and the determination she had to rebuild her life with honesty and integrity. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. But was it enough? I looked at Sarah and told her that I appreciated her honesty and the effort she was making to change. However, I also told her that forgiveness and reconciliation were two different things. While I could see myself forgiving her someday, I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. She said she understood and that she wouldn't push me anymore. She thanked me for hearing her out and said she would continue working on herself, regardless of whether we ever reconciled. As she walked away, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This chapter of my life, filled with pain and betrayal, was finally coming to an end. But just when I thought the story was over, I received an unexpected message a few weeks later. It was from someone claiming to be Mark's ex-girlfriend. She said she had information about Sarah and Mark that I needed to know. My curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet her. What she revealed turned everything I thought I knew on its head. It seems the truth about Sarah and Mark's relationship was far more complicated than I had imagined. And as much as I wanted to move on, it seemed my past wasn't ready to let me go. And that's a wrap for today's video, folks. Stay tuned for more exciting content. Thanks for watching.